Last night's game, it was the first game I was able to consume football fully for a good week. Great time, great game, pretty competitive game, Colts-Niners. My biggest takeaway from this game is, without a shadow of a doubt, the San Francisco 49ers. It's phenomenal what San Francisco has done with the injuries, the Brandon Ayuk situation, and the competition within their own division. If there was an award, if the NFL had one, that would be given out to the best front office, best coaching staff in the NFL for a whole season, organizational-wise, the San Francisco 49ers would win that award by a mile. It is astonishing to see the type of performance that the 49ers were able to put on yesterday, offensively and defensively, just complimentary football across the board. The Colts are a team who are fighting for a playoff spot. They got this guy, Phillip Rivers. They played a pretty decent game last weekend against the Seattle Seahawks. And they're at home. And this is like a must-win game for them. And San Francisco, coming from the West Coast into the East Coast in Indianapolis, or it's still categorized as the East Coast, right? Or is it the Midwest? Either one. You're going across time zones, Monday Night Football, primetime game, and you demolished the Colts on all phases. Offensively, Brock Purdy played amazing. Defensively, they played very well. And my main takeaway again, how great has the 49ers managed this season? When it comes from the injuries of Fred Warner, torn ACL, Nick Bosa, torn ACL, Michael Williams, your first round pick, torn ACL. Well, sorry, Fred Warner didn't tear his ACL. He broke his ankle. Then the Brandon Ayuk situation. There was a whole lot of news coming out going into the weekend. This video of Brandon Ayuk going 100 miles per hour past Santa Clara Stadium and pretty much dissing the 49ers. He's not going to be on the team for the rest of the season, and definitely probably not going into next season. You manage that. George Kittle battled injuries this season. He missed 7 games. Brock Purdy had injuries as well. And somehow you're sitting at 11-4 in competition for the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. What other organization would be able to manage that across the league? If you told me going into the NFL season, any team that they'll lose their All-Pro, Pro Bowl defensive end, probably the best linebacker in the NFL in Fred Warner, your number 1 overall pick, you'd be without your quarterback for 5-6 games, you'll be without one of the best tight ends in a multitude of games. If you told me that, I'm like, yeah, this team would go 4-11, 5-12. No, the San Francisco 49ers are 11-4 and fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC within their own division. In a division with the Seattle Seahawks, who are also in the conversation for the number 1 seed, and the Rams, who have arguably probably the MVP front-runner favorite in Matthew Stafford. That is what the San Francisco 49ers are doing right now, and that's just absolutely phenomenal. But to get some things in pertaining to the game, Brock Purdy played very well, and I noticed this with Brock Purdy. When he's on, he is on. Like that connection between him and George Kittle, I've heard a lot of people talk about it over the years with the success that Brock Purdy has been able to have with the San Francisco 49ers. But I've always associated his success with having the Avengers. You have Christian McCaffrey. At the time, you had Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. But really, it kind of feels different now. I think Juwan Jennings is having a great role. Kevin Bourne is what seems to be a great pickup for the Niners. That wide receiver combo as well. They're playing without Ricky Pearsall, who's a great stud first-round pick a couple of years ago. But now it seems to me that if Brock Purdy has George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, I think you can get some pretty high-level play from Brock Purdy. I'm not willing to say that Brock Purdy is like this top 10 quarterback in the league. I don't. Because I really feel that Kyle Shanahan is a phenomenal coach and that he's built a quarterback-friendly system. He was able to input Mac Jones, a guy who felt like his career was on the edge of dying, brung him to the 49ers, and he's been playing at a high level when Brock Purdy was out. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Brock Purdy is like this top 10 type level caliber, talent-wise quarterback. If you was a GM to start a team, there's a slew of quarterbacks you would take before Brock Purdy, but we got to give credit where credit's due. When Brock Purdy's on, he is on. He was making some throws yesterday that were phenomenal. There were some throws that Brock Purdy makes, you just look and be like, how's that ball not intercepted? But somehow, some way, Brock Purdy finds a way to complete the pass. It's just, I'm just willing. I've discussed this multiple times in the past, but I'm kind of willing to accept now that Brock Purdy throws dangerous footballs, but somehow, some way, under God's will, they find a way to get in the receiver's hands. I'm just willing to accept it at this point, because last night he threw a couple balls. I'm sitting there like, how is that not intercepted? But I rest my case on that. Christian McCaffrey, phenomenal player. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He showed up last night. Juwan Jennings, they just have a great team. And they can compete in the NFC. I'm not going to doubt the Niners no more. I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders just because of all the competition in the NFC. And I think Seattle's a better team. I think the Rams is a better team. But I'm not going to count the Niners out of winning multiple playoff games because they can play on the road. They are physical. Like Kyle Shanahan has built a culture. They are physical. And they're going to play anywhere. Robert Saleh, defensive play caller, just phenomenal job across the board. I think he's going to be probably getting more head coaching interviews after what he's been willing to do with that defense and the amount of injuries to their two significant players. And they've been super successful. So I think the Niners are going to be able to contend. I don't think they're going to contend for a Super Bowl per se, but I think they can win multiple playoff games. And I think I would not be surprised if I were to find them in the NFC Championship game. Now, moving on to the Colts' point of view. My main takeaway, honestly, it is super unprecedented what has happened to the Indianapolis Colts this season. From going 7-1 into your bye week. And now you're 8-7. You're lost 6 out of your last 7. And you made a trade you traded 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. You put all the chips into the table. You played a quarterback who was out there with a broken fibula. And then you bring back Phillip Rivers, who hasn't played football in 5 years, was eligible for the Hall of Fame this next coming up Hall of Fame voting session. And you're not going to make the playoffs. Let me repeat that. You were 7-1. You lost 6 out of your last 7. Now you're 8-7. And you're not going to make the playoffs. After making a big trade by acquiring Sauce Gardner for 2 first-round picks that may set your franchise back, you go out there and play a quarterback with a broken fibula and he tears Achilles a couple weeks after. And then your final solution was to find Phillip Rivers coming out of retirement. And don't get me wrong, and we'll go ahead and get to Phillip Rivers. He played actually very well yesterday. He made some throws. Like, you can tell early on that he cannot throw a deep ball. Like that first pass that he tried to throw to Michael Pittman Jr. in the first quarter that got, it was like 2 yards underthrown, but that puppy, it had no type of power under it. It just looked like a prayer. He just can't throw the deep ball, but he was making some plays yesterday. He made some throws under pressure. He played well despite his lack of mobility, and he was super competitive. Phillip Rivers looked comparable as a quarterback yesterday with that defensive unit that the 49ers have. The 49ers unit is physical, and they are fast. And they were able to make plays yesterday. Throwing a couple touchdowns to Alec Pierce. And this thing, Phillip Rivers made the game competitive. It's what the Colts have been doing all season for the most part, but they never, since Daniel Jones, the reports of him having a broken fibula, Daniel Jones started to make some Daniel Jones type plays, turning the ball over, and causing the Colts to play themselves out of games. But Phillip Rivers was playing them into the game yesterday. Like, the Colts just could not get no stops on defense. Brock Purdy was slicing and dicing them. Kyle Shanahan just absolutely put on a coaching masterclass against Lou Anarumo's defense yesterday. Because Lou Anarumo, he was been in the conversation of one of the best defensive coordinator pickups this offseason because of how well the Colts defense has been playing. But yesterday, Kyle Shanahan, he just took Lou Anarumo to school yesterday. So the defense couldn't get a muster or stop. They got the one little fluky interception, hit off of Kevin Bourne's hands and into the safety. But outside of that, like, the defense just couldn't get a stop. So Phillip Rivers, credit to him, he played well and kept the Colts in the game. Like, he kept getting touchdown drives, making big plays and big passes to keep Colts in the game. So I can't really sit here and say that Phillip Rivers was the reason why the Colts lost the game yesterday. Yes, he had one costly interception. I saw Troy Aikman talk about it a little bit, that Tyler Warren, he kind of telegraphed that he was fixing to get the ball. Like, he kind of turned his head before he broke into the top of his route, calls the number 53, the defensive player, linebacker, to cut the ball that Phillip Rivers threw. But outside of that, I think Phillip Rivers played very well. But the idea of having to bring back Phillip Rivers, though, has been an indictment of the Colts' evaluation of the quarterback position these last couple of years. And when I was writing my show, I was really thinking about the Steelers. Like, the Colts and the Steelers really intertwined to me with the idea of they can't evaluate quarterbacks. If we think about the Steelers, they drafted Kenny Pickett. He didn't turn out. You've had Justin Fields. You've had Russell Wilson. And now you've had Aaron Rodgers. You've had Devin Hodges, Mason Rudolph. You've had so many quarterbacks, you can't seem to find one. And it seems that has been the case for Indianapolis Colts. Now, credit to the Colts. They thought that Daniel Jones was going to be the guy. He's been hurt, and now there's reports that they are questioning if he's even going to be there in the future. But I really compare the Colts to their quarterback situation because it's the same thing with the Steelers. Ever since Ben Roethlisberger retired, they can't find anybody. They can't find that next generation at the quarterback position. Same thing for the Colts. Ever since Andrew Luck retired, they just haven't found a guy. They've been through Phillip Rivers, been through Matt Ryan. You drafted Anthony Richardson in the same case as the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett. Those two guys have not panned out. Well, they've moved on for Kenny Pickett, but I don't think Richardson is even the answer. Like, he couldn't even complete 50% of his passes. And then you had Daniel Jones, and you're rolling out Phillip Rivers out there again with no type of solution for their future at the quarterback spot. And that is a big thing because you gave up 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. Now, granted, this upcoming quarterback class, there's like no quarterbacks available. But the year after that, you don't have a first-round pick. And you got all those quarterbacks coming out of college, getting ready for the NFL, and you're not going to have a first-round pick. So the Colts' future at quarterback-wise is in jeopardy. It might be some more seasons before the Colts finally find their generational quarterback. Hopefully, they'll get another look at Daniel Jones, and he'll be ready and actually play well next season. But that's another question mark in the Colts' back pocket. But let's go ahead. We've got to end it off here, 12 minutes in. The Colts have a good roster, and it sucks because this is probably going to be the best shot that they've had to be able to contend because of the parity across the AFC, because we'll talk about another team, the Jaguars, who are going to be able to utilize that type of opportunity and momentum of the parity in the AFC. And their season got derailed by injuries. So if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan, this type of situation sucks. And if you're a Niners fan, like, you just couldn't ask for a better type of experience so far for your ball club being in contention for the number 1 seed.